roundtable where let's interact as much as possible, but privileged to be here to work. Of course, road safety has to happen on roads, but we all start here, make up our minds. So I'll just use my own thoughts and also some of the experiences working with some of you. And that can set the tone. And going forward, looking forward for the panel discussion, the talk from Akash, all of us. I think Volvo that way is a name which for us in safety is very, very easy to relate to. In the last global ministerial conference in Sweden, what we could see that how businesses and corporates can support in the road safety movement of the country. We need to see that in India as well, and some of us who come from corporate have worked together, and with that appeal that yes, there is a business case for safety, provided the corporates take that leadership. And being representative of, again, one of the reputed organizations in the country, it's also our contribution is important. So all of us know that road transportation is for India and across the globe is central to our lives now, unlike in past where rivers were the main transportation and the society used to have inhabitants around that, but that had changed to the roads. And India per se, if you look at, is number 2 in the world. That means that road transportation will be, and look at Mr. Gadkari, how proud he is to inaugurate one after another roads. And what has happened in last 10 years is taking this further. Now this also, when the roads are getting built with that speed, and mobility is such a necessity for us, in that sustainability question, the question mark why I put it is, whenever we talk of sustainability, which comes on top of the mind across is the emission, what we are doing with the emission standard, with the pollution becomes the one, you do on Google also, hardly you will see in the top search, you will see another sustainability issue, which we will talk today, and that's why we are here, that what is that angle of sustainability we are missing. And that is where, for me per se, you know, every day all of us use roads and 415 families does not get back their people home. Have that thinking that they start almost like us and they don't come back. And it's not a small number, much bigger, much higher than what COVID did to us. And it's a silent death. Every day, evening, by night, 24 hours, 415 is also underreported because if you go with WHO data, it will be close to 600. And if you look at PwC, their study with FICCI, what we did was 100% further underreporting. So you can imagine how big the numbers are. In fact, one data point which upsetted me quite a lot was how many of our defense personnel die on border. More than that, die inside the border by road crash. It was unimaginable for me the day first time I heard about this data. And it is not about only they who die, we all are using the roads. In fact, for us, in sitting people in this room, it's more than business. And roughly 1 out of every 4 will have a road crash in their working life. Think about it. In this room, all of us are going to face it if we are not stopping it, if we are not doing something about it. And 1 out of 13 will have a fatal death. This is such alarming. But yet, do we get that kind of highest priority on this topic? When it comes to sustainability, we talk about emission is fine, where we have those medical issues, but losing a city already every year should be good enough for ringing the alarm. Already today, a city, if you consider a lakh of population, so you have many, many cities who are lower than, if you look at on this chart, whether it is Roorkee or Anantnag or Bhadrak, that kind of town or city, we lose one of them or more than one of them every year in our country. That's the current state. And if you look at now, the trend is more on the two-wheeler because we are very special as a country. Our more commuting happens on two-wheeler. More than 190 motorcycle, people are dying. And last year, in fact, even worse is the pedestrian. This only on increase. You have every day, can you imagine? Every day. This is not a easy thing. We can't even talk on that. This is, and many of us have personal experiences around it. We lost some people very, very close to us. So this is more than a business topic, a very emotional topic, but also on the economics of it, if you see how much billion of US dollar we are losing. If we can just put that much back into the priority, a lot can be done. So where are we going wrong? And this is something which definitely I wanted to push some of us, and I would like to see how the panel discussion fans out. But this is now last 10, 15 years back, maybe not in the public debate, but now it is in public debate. All of us talk about it. We meet the same people more or less on the road safety platform. And I always wonder why it is not going to the level that numbers are coming down. And this question I've been asking, in many, many forums. I still remember Professor Dinesh Mohan at IIT Delhi, and he has been working very hard since many years on this. I read about him in Reader's Digest when I was in my early age. And when I met first time, it was for me like a dream come true for a person whom, you figure out some people. I touched his feet, and the first question I asked him, sir, what is that you can tell me? Forget about all these books and research and everything what you have done. Can you give me a summary that what is that we can intervene which can at least get to the 50%? Let's play very honest. And he said the first thing, which was little impossible at this point of time even to intervene, was enforcement. He said if we can just work on enforcement, you can get down by 50%. And you can imagine in our country where more or less all of us violate those traffic rules because they are rules, they are not life-saving protocol in our understanding. How many of us, by the way, here have never violated any road rules? So, a billion Indians violating, almost like we throw stones in Kashmir, billions of us. Look at, we don't even see comparison. It feels so, no, I'm not throwing stones on defense people in Kashmir, but it's almost like that, that we are not abiding by, and a billion of us, and how many, police you have to control us? Any guess? Any figure comes to your mind? How many traffic police we have? A billion Indians on roads, and they all are needed to be, because you just saw that how many of us are self-enforced, hardly. So any guess how many India needs or how many India has? 1 million? 8 lakhs, 5 lakhs? 200,000? 85,000. What can you do with them? 85 to 86,000. That too, they are not a special force. They are from the police force, taken out for some time. Sometimes it does not seem to be a good posting to be a traffic cop compared to a normal cop. When you get I have lived with them in many of my campaigns. I have many of their stories, and sometimes not really good stories. Of course, some of them are not for safety. Some of them are just to guide. Imagine that out of those 85,000, many will be necessary to guide if the lights are not working or traffic lights are not working. Forget about. So when you see that kind of situation, my question remains: where are we going wrong? Can we really make that promise? What we said, what we did. On a global level, also, it's a heavy, fatality topic that every 23 seconds you have one person dying. Of course, in India, every 4 minutes. But it is something I still remember at WHO, and this is now connected to SDG, Social Development Goals. So there is a quiet focus from the top side, from the United Nations, from WHO, from many of the global NGOs coming in, and some organizations are doing almost like they have a religion of safety. And for example, when I see in Sweden, Volvo or Autoliv, these kind of organizations. Of course, in my last tenure with Hela, I saw exactly a similar kind of very focused approach on safety. And when I see in Tata, for me it was a music, because when I just joined this company a few weeks back, and I saw that their rating for management can go down heavily if they are not, they have a road safety audit. Almost every organization has to go through. And if it is not qualifying to a level, every other rating of the management and leadership goes down by certain percentage. So I really love that there is so much of focus. But again, what does it mean in terms of global and India that the targets are not met? At 2020, if you remember, we had this goal to reduce by 50%, Brasilia Declaration. Even Gadkari ji also was there, India was also signatory. But what happened? Nothing happened of that sort, what we thought. It actually increased. And then what happened in Sweden was again more disappointing, that we almost took similar target, just shifted our goal by 10 years more. So what was supposed to be done in 2020 with so much of brains around, why? This is my question, why? Why we have to now push it to 2030? And I think each one of us, you have a lot of ideas. And I see so much of passionate discussion around it, and also a lot of working. Recently, you saw suddenly India again waking up to this call, and everybody was talking about the black spot and infrastructure issue. Believe me, there is no 10 kilometer in our country which you can say that it does not have a blind spot, whether it is small or big or a gray spot. So what do we do with these roads? Because when we as a economically, I will say, developing country, we build our roads, we were not like Western country where we had enough money that we can put in. And also we did not have enough safety engineers. We have Akhilesh here from NHAI. NHAI is struggling to get qualified, good safety engineers for audits. We are dying to get as many people as possible. If you can bring, they will love to collaborate with you. But where are they? Who is teaching them? Where are they getting trained? And in a sense of that, it's a 10, 20 years intervention. When can we get that? So this, so many of these black spots, but then the outcome is you have a lot of these young people, productive people, country is losing. So I'll not repeat those statistics that how two-wheeler is the biggest, fatality target. But just imagine this little bit of a science. This is the interaction of vehicles, infrastructure, and the driver or road user. What happens at the point of crash? I'm not talking about hidden metrics and all the other safety jargons in our engineering, because in our case, the pre-crash is pretty long, because what happens, this guy who we call driver or road user, at that point of time, when an accident situation happens, neither you can change the road immediately, nor the vehicles can be immediately made the best vehicles. That moment, and we want to reduce fatality immediately, as quickly as possible. I think to me, the biggest hope I have is on these drivers. And anybody who works on this with a theory of constraint will tell you, here, if we can just take first priority, driver can be that person. Infrastructure may take many years, and I'll give you the data that vehicles have become really safer. But has that helped? So there, when we have the overall, in fact, look at this diagram. This is about Bombay-Pune highway. And this I have taken again from the RASI consortium, the accident research, what they do. What you see is a huge area which is about the human. That means, I'm not telling that humans to be blamed, but humans can save. The statement is different. I'm not telling that these are done by humans, but this much humans can save. Now, how they can save is something I'm going to look forward also in the panel discussion. You all are going to talk about in the technology. So the theory of constraint says, can we, in these three, put first thing first, which is the road users or the drivers. Some of the further data, which I have received also from RASI Consortium and Bosch, is if you look at two-wheeler accidents, you have the human element 96%. Not to blame them, but that's a fact, that's a reality with the scientific research. Similarly, in the truck side also, you'll see a very similar. Humans, 96%. So it's little bit on a scientific side well established. I don't have to tell about it. Come on the vehicle side. For our vehicle standard on safety, India has come a long way. We are no less now, if you look at world map, India is no less than many developed countries and going very fast. Gadkari ji himself is bringing a lot of it. So when vehicles are really going that fast on the standard, does it help? Are we getting that crash reduced? It is not. So where are we going wrong? And that is my very central theme of the question, which I always get intrigued, that for the masses, not in this room I'm talking. In this room you can understand telematics, IoT, you can understand all the inside data science, everything. But masses, arresting road crash, is it a scientific problem or is it just a bad luck? If you ask around, people in our homes, in our families, how do they see? Why people still feel that lemon and chili is better than an IoT device to save them from a crash? Why do you think people not cross when a black cat goes? These superstitions, everybody knows there is a risk on the road. But how do they attack it? How do they arrest it? That's why the rules are seen as those British time rules. They are not seen as life-saving protocols. So I think the biggest thing what I feel is the risk perception of people. Look at this. It's amazing how Corona can get into their mind. But helmets and the safety protocols not. So this is very, very normal. And let's accept it. This is who we are. Once we accept, then we go to the next level, that's how we intervene. So these kind of risk perception is very normal. And the understanding of the people, it is a bad luck. It is not a science. So this community, what I always tell, my appeal is, how can we do more and more for people to realize this is a scientific problem, not a luck problem. If that becomes, I think this will change. These are all the adherence, all the enforcement, whether you can call self-enforcement. Why somebody will not be, have a helmet, or why somebody will not buckle up if he understands? In our flights, in the planes, I think many people now fly, and the moment air hostess says, please buckle up, people do buckle up. She doesn't come with a challan, the way we do it on the road, right? So we have made a big fight of this thing. It's like a war on roads. 85,000 traffic police on one side and a billion. We will never win, When I say we'll never win, the life will never win. Of course, we are winning. They are not able to catch us. But the life will never win. And this situation is making our overall, the road, the risk pretty, pretty high. So we have technology. Netradyne, I think, became more successful abroad than first in India. Why that happened? And now when we see that people are getting on the understanding, Netradyne will become successful, Intel will become successful, Hella will become, all the safety company will become successful. But if we don't use the technology properly, we are going nowhere. And this is where my appeal is, from a regime which is regulate and enforce. We have extreme high regulations, rules, everything, but we are poor on enforcement. So when you have zero enforcement, nothing happens. So can we shift for this war on road to a more different, where we basically take the same drivers who can help us, and that is where the technology will play a big role. From really blaming the driver, punishing the driver, can we go to trust and train the driver and reward the driver? Can we really make a force on the roads, who are the good force? And this good force can complement those 85,000 traffic police. Can we see the same problem differently? We are seeing driver as a problem. Can we see driver itself as a solution? And when we see that, I think the world will change completely. Then we actually are talking about complete education and awareness part, not only on and here we are talking about self-enforcement. So there can be many causes for road crash, but there is one solution which I always feel is pull the masses from awareness towards commitment and action. When you win their heart and mind, things will change. With ACMA, SIAM, FICCI, CII, a lot of organizations and a lot of companies, around more than 500 companies, we have been working on this. The first bigger campaign was 2018, where we did 1 crore steps, which was our awareness. We started like doing a 1 crore, walking. It became 1.3 billion walking, 131 crore. Then we went into a lot of these schools, colleges, and we started this pledge campaign. I think dozens of ministers, hundreds of CEOs joined us. And recently in 2020, I think Netradyne also was part of it. We said, why not we act and start monitoring? That is where technology came in. So we did a lot of that. Maybe I'll show you some glimpse of it. This was that 131 crore steps, what you see, from Kanyakumari to Kashmir. And I think people know this problem. It's only we have to ignite. And that's why corporates also have to come out. I started with this, road safety has to happen on road, not in conference room. So we have to really take out our, those kind of shoes and be on the roads, be on the place where we have this issue. And fortunately, I told you, dozens of ministers joined us. We started a different level of collaboration with the Ministry of Road Transport since that time. Schools, colleges, what you see is Wagah border, SIAM headquarters. They are plenty. So this is something which you can, of course, see on the net directly, rather than I showing you here, which converted into this pledge campaigns. Here again, we had roughly around 50 lakh people doing this pledge. We were supported by this RJ Naved. He helped us out. In fact, that campaign appeal is still going on in the social media viral. In fact, I personally scripted that. बोलते ना रोए खड़े हो जाते हैं, goosebumps आता. I see that, when I saw him talking and people following that, because we had something like a 2-minute silence for the victims of road crash on that 2020, I guess it was. 2019, I guess, and 2020 we had a different campaign in 100 cities. So we continue to do that, and the last one was in the Corona period, because I was in Sweden, exactly in the ministerial conference, and in my hotel down there was a road, and I was amazed how when there's a traffic jam, still there is a back-to-back gap. And this is amazing, and Indian will not understand this, why they are doing it. Is it a fool that he's not going and bumper to bumper? So I recorded that video, and I just put it on Twitter with my statement that can we make in India, and that time you remember that Duri Hai Zaruri was happening for the Corona, that you need to have some distance between people. So we said, why can't cars and vehicles can have a distance on road? And then I got the data point that you have, rather than 2 seconds, we have 600 microsecond distance between our vehicle, and 45% crash happen when you go tailgating, and especially in the trucks you go inside. So there was a data point and evidence to tell you that we can make a difference if you work on this. So when we put this on the social media, the video became viral, and that encouraged us to go something, because in Corona time you can't do something on the road. So we made a kind of a digital campaign called Duri Hai Zaruri. Roughly around 500 plus organizations came in. In a 10 days, we trained some 35,000 people across many corporates, schools, colleges. And I still remember that a lot of kids started training people, and we had like a chain reaction it started. And then when we had this social distancing converted to traffic distancing, then when we did this, Corona went, this first wave went, and then with ministry, we started something called National Road Safety Month first time. And in that National Road Safety Month, we said, why not we take this monitoring on the road? And when we said we want to come on the road, this was the campaign we launched. This was Rajnath ji and Gadkari ji did. From Amritsar, we had ladies driving just like a big boss format with all camera on to prove the country ladies can drive better, and drive with Duri Hai Zaruri, and with all the safety score. And then they were voted. So we choose from 85, 86 good lady drivers, around 6-7 of them. And we had Mahindra and a lot of companies, I remember now, Hela, Minda, Brakes India, Webco. So a lot of us came together, we pooled in, and we actually had this driving Ulta. It was not Kanyakumari to here, it was basically Wagah border to Kanyakumari. And the idea was to show India, and I still have those lovely pictures that on highways in India, you don't see people with Duri Hai Zaruri, and you have these cars well painted so that you can see. NHAI gave free run to these cars, I still remember. It was a Government of India camp. It was picked up by them actually. We started this, but then it was picked up by Government of India, and they endorsed it as an official program, where the whole idea was, and in the Sweden conference, we put safety, speed management as the criteria for the next campaign. So that's why it was on speed. And there was a startup who helped us on technology we are looking at. So he mapped, this technology provider mapped India with a lot of potholes and humps, around 300,000 of those hazard points. Intense Mobi was the startup. And then they made a free pooling of that data into an app, and people were called to participate into this competition. So these ladies were doing on a camera with Netradyne, the analytics and everything. We have so many great videos actually, where you can see a two-wheeler causing the crash on the highway many times. To safeguard a two-wheeler, everybody can do very hazard situation. And then a lot of people were called. I think this campaign reached around 1 crore of people, where Mr. Gadkari himself gave a sticker signed with his signature to the top performing Safe Speed Challenge guys. So we said, I still remember that video. It was a video you can see on the internet, which talks about somebody having a vaccine, because vaccine just came in, and still he met with an accident. And there it was appealing to people, na to chalan ke liye, na to apni saan ke liye, this challenge for apne aur apno ki jaan ke liye. Or inam ke liye, because we gave a lot of Paytm voucher to truck drivers. I still remember Motherson and many large truck companies, they participated in this, and they got a lot of Paytm voucher to the safety score, good safety score people. And the normal people, they got this sticker on their cars. you can imagine how good it feels, when you are rewarded for it. So this was, you can see around 5.13 million people specifically gone for this campaign. And then we had this quizzes by ICICI, and there was a live TV, because this was a big boss format. And on that live TV, there used to be quiz, and many cities participated in that. And we had a very interesting question, which was not about the road rules, about situation on the road, that what will you do if this happens? And every day evening at 8 p.m. used to be talk show. So this is what we did at that time. Of course, then the second wave came, which was pretty bad. So I want to leave you with that thought, that if we have bad luck and science as an option for people, how can we as a group take them and start trusting the science by affordable technology, by narrative building in the society, by getting into our own corporates and our employees to work on that? That will be the day when people and masses believe it is a scientific problem and there is a solution to it. Today, either they are hopeless or careless. This two situation is not helping us. And at the top of it, they are fighting with this traffic police. Can they be part of us? So we have to win them back. And that's why I'm the biggest supporter of assist and alert. That is why technology helps us, whether it is the OEM partners or component manufacturer who are bringing these cameras and analytics and giving that overall assist and alert part. So with this, I will put rest to it. And thank you again for inviting me. And I'm looking forward for the panel discussions and the talks. Thank you.
So, and then of course, what came out, the word said many times by Mr. Pandey here was Sweden and Sweden. So I think it made me very proud, because that's a company which I worked for most of my life and spent a large part of my life in Sweden during the working years, and I have seen the change there. So I can just mention that it was in around the year 2000, Sweden would have about 700 fatalities a year. It's a small population of about 8-9 million people. And today, so they built up this target of zero. Zero accidents, zero fatalities. And today it is down to 200. So of course, it's a much more structured environment. The challenges are very different from what we have. But if you get on to something, it gets done. That's why in the corporate world, we always say, whatever gets measured gets done. And that's where when you talk of that, if you have a driver, let's say in a bus, in my case, and you put a camera there, whether the camera works or not, but the driver drives very well, because he knows that something is watching him. So it's very natural for all of us. As was said, I'll talk a little, and I don't think I can impart any knowledge here. All I can do with my 25 plus years of experience in the field of public transportation, mainly on the side of OEM, which has been Volvo, a great name to work worldwide, and Eicher, a great name to work for India, and I'm just going to share my thoughts. So I know that seated amongst all the people here are many experts who know much more than me, but I will try and share some of the examples as how I look at things and how, as OEMs, we are trying to address the issue. So the topic for the day is investing in safe tech and enabling drivers coaching for safe bus transportation for me. Let me say that I'm truly ashamed to share, and I think Mr. Pandey also did that we lose, at least on paper, 150,000 people a year in India. It's really shameful, and it's only increasing. It's not, as you said, it is not improving. So let's hope that when we sit and listen to each other into such forums, we are able to translate it out there, which some of us, being passionate, try to do all the time. But still, with a lot of things going in the right direction, don't see big success as yet. I think our challenge, of course, is very different from what the rest of the world have. We have the urban population and the rural population, which means we have the educated and the uneducated. I think I'm very pleased in the last year or two, since I've come back to India now after a long time. I am very proud as a person of Indian origin to see the highways improving in a very good way, if I can say. On the other hand, I think I personally have had, even if I avoid or don't drive in India anymore, sitting in my car watching the driver drive, I have seen over 20, 25 instances in the last 1 year where you have the most posh roads, if I can use the word, or the best of the highways or roads, but people who are very well educated moving around in high-class SUVs also coming from the wrong side, trying to save time and wanting to go and take a wrong U-turn or come in the wrong direction because they think 10 meters or 100 meters is justifiable. And that brings me to my experience on licenses. I have driving licenses from a few countries with me. This is not to tell you the number of driving licenses I have, but I can tell you that the first driving license was my Indian driving license, and it was delivered to me as a kid at home. I managed to do that, how we fixed the system, without my parents knowing it, but I had a license already. When I was not of an age, I should have a license. Yeah. Then I have the experiences of having licenses in Europe and in Singapore. And the European license was probably 10, 15 years back. And I was sweating because I was supposed to give an examination for it. And I had to score 62 questions right out of 70 in 1.5 hours. And it started with a test. And I remember studying quite a lot. I didn't study. I wish I'd studied better in school to pass that test. Hopefully I did. But that's how it started. Basic rules and regulations first before you go on to learning or going for your practical tests. Same with Singapore. You have to score 45 to pass out of 50. And that was just about 4 or 5 years back. And my stress was that I had school-going children. And I said, oh my God, if I as a father go there, give the test and say, sorry, I got the score and I failed, what kind of an example will I lead for my children? Yeah? So that stress made me stay up 3 nights, and I managed to clear it on the attempt. But it is not about whether I cleared it or not, but again, rules and regulations need to be imbibed into people. And that's a challenge you also brought in, Mr. Pandey, that there is every kind of enforcement allowed and available in India, but we somehow, as citizens, are unable to respect it or unable to enforce it. And I think you rightly covered that we try to do the dande ka zor for people. And it is that dande ka zor which really doesn't work. There are better ways of doing it. I can share some examples. Having the opportunity to be the first employee of Volvo buses in India 25 years back, and then starting Volvo buses in India, it was taken for granted that there will be a partition in a bus, for an example, so that the passengers are more in a luxury area and the driver is there because the engine probably is in front, it's a truck chassis, and the vehicle makes a lot of noise. So bringing in Volvo with a rear engine and telling and stating that I will not give you a partition as Volvo, we dissatisfied a lot of customers. The initial ones really had difficulties to agree that they want to buy a bus, because for them, driver is somebody who sits in front. Why should the driver get an air-conditioned space? Why should the driver be able to adjust his steering or his seat? Because we can save cost. Can we not take out those features from the vehicle, etc., etc.? So I think that's where we need to change. Because if you have a bus transportation, whether in a city it's a school bus or a staff bus or a long-distance bus going from one place to another, it's extremely important that the driver is the person who is best trained and has the right level of maturity and training, because when you are driving inside the city or at high speeds on highways, it's that one man who has the lives of all the peoples in his hand. But sometimes we tend to overlook. What I'm happy to say, though, that over the last 20 years in India, I have now seen a big change where operators have become very mindful of the fact. And of course, statistics thrown at us are always that state transport undertakings are doing a lot of work and so on and so forth, so there will be improvement. But I think what people forget is that out of the 1 million plus registered buses in India, only 150,000, 148,000 to be precise, are with the state transport undertakings. So 85% of the population is with private operators, be in the city segment, the school segment, the staff segment, the route permit segment, or the long distance segment, and so on and so forth. So we need to prioritize where should we focus and whom should we focus on. When we started Volvo buses, and that we very much do on Eicher also, when we started that you will get a bus and we will train 3 drivers per person per bus bought free of cost, it was very strange for operators. Why is that? Why have we put up a driver training school in the year 1999-2000? Why do we have 2 test tracks where we bring in drivers for a week and train them? But today that has changed absolutely. So I think driver training is a very important phenomenon, because what we learned by giving that training to drivers, that we trained them not only on how to drive a vehicle, but also what are the social habits, what are the civil habits to live in a society, how to be clean all the time, how to have good food, how to try to have homely food. And these were things which made a lot of difference. And I can share an example with you that it was very normal when we started 20 years or 22 years back, that a driver would have banyan on, when he was driving, because it was so hot. And then when the first buses were sold, the operator actually did everything to do a very good function, but forgot the driver in between. So the driver went, this driver went, and he bought himself a new shirt and a new trouser. And then he started to drive and be sitting there for the inaugural function of the bus. So what was running in his mind? Even the driver felt, oh my God, I'm going to sit in such a lovely bus. I'm going to have an air-conditioned place for me. So why should I have my banyan on? So with his own money, he ends up buying. And I can tell you the change in India, because this Tuesday morning, the Chief Minister of Karnataka launched the new coach series, sleeper buses, which we just launched in India a few months back. He launched the first 20 of them for Karnataka State Road Transport Corporation. And when I was taking the Chief Minister and some of his colleagues inside the bus, I think I really saw him smile at the driver, because the KSRTC driver was using a uniform which actually was much better than how I am dressed. It was white, it was spick and spank, and it was very well ironed. So I think that if a driver will go with that kind of a pride in public transportation, I think they will have a different way and a different behavior on the road. Let me then get into some statistics. I think we all know that we are the world's number 1 market when it comes to two-wheelers, number 3 when it comes to cars, and number 2 in the world when it comes to buses. And that is because China is number 1. I think one of the areas as OEMs we feel and we try to strengthen is the accident response mechanism. So be it in the city or be it on long distance, whenever we have an accident, first we have people taking out their mobiles and taking pictures. And I'm sorry, I have seen it myself. I don't know if you've experienced this or not. Koi sadak mein accident hota hai, so the first thing we do, including probably myself, अरे नहीं बच गया यार, चलो आगे, कोई कुछ नहीं हुआ. So you leave. अरे नहीं यार, हिल नहीं रहा, लगता है मर गया, छोड़ो, पुलिस आके देख लेगी. Yeah? So on both ways, rather than going out and stepping and helping people, our response has been because of, I don't know, the way we are built, the way we are educated, or is it the fear of a traffic policeman, which is only 85,000, or whatever it is. I think that's a challenge which we need to change to improve and reduce traffic fatalities on the road. So I think that if I will then go into some of the things which we as OEMs are doing in terms of technology, because I think they always say that change is the only constant. So, and yes, you were right, Mr. Pandey, there is a heavy change on how we used to look at vehicles 10, 15 years back and how they're coming out today. What I'm proud to see is that the central government is putting regulations and pushing for them and wanting to bring good things. I think even if without getting into technicalities, when Bharat Stage 6 came in, we had onboard diagnostics, which means when a truck or a bus leaves our factory, the tailpipe emission just at the point of leaving should meet the standard. What will happen from 1st of April this year is that during the initial life over the first couple of years of the truck and bus, if on the tailpipe the emission is not met, and if that for that particular brand it's found time and again, there will be extremely high penalties, which means that a so-called Volkswagen Gate scandal is possible in India also. So we are getting from 1st of April onboard diagnostics, we call it OBD2, and I think that's a good step forward. Another thing which is going to reduce accidents in buses especially, and especially on long distances, we see that on the roads the bus falls out by the bridge into the water or into a gorge or whatever, and we will have electronic stability programs coming onto the buses, which means that even if the driver with his rash driving is losing control of the product with the inbuilt electronic and computer systems will more or less balance itself. So I think that this is going to have a major impact in the bus industry. And I'm extremely happy that none of our competitors have objected to it, because my worry was that, as has always happened, we say, sorry, we are not ready, forget about the life as of now, give us a couple of more years, and then we will go and implement these changes. So I think that is where, whenever the government of India says that we want to regularize and harmonize our regulations with Europe, at least one fact makes me happy, and that is that safety will be very high on the agenda. So I think that's a good way forward. Today, buses are of better quality, not only on the driveline but also of the body. The government has taken great steps there. Otherwise, I remember, and I think maybe I should have mentioned the context. Today at Volvo Eicher Commercial Vehicles, we probably this year will do 75,000 trucks and buses. For the first time in our history, we have become the second largest bus manufacturer of India from number 3. So we have a lot of products going out. But I'm proud to say that most of these products are, and almost all these products are, with a lot of features which are path breaking. So we do tend to sell products which are a bit more expensive than our competitors, but that is on the fact that we try to integrate in our joint venture more and more Volvo safety and quality norms as much as is possible. And as I said, because the government is driving this step, I think we are not standing there alone waving the flag on the rooftop. It's the government doing it now. So I think that the automobile industry, and especially it's always like that the truck and the bus industry is always the last to modernize. So this is the decade when our products on trucks and buses will become global standard in the next 5 to 7 years. I have lost count of time. How much time do I have? Okay, very good. There are some more things I'd like to talk which will help us promote public safety, and that is alcolock. And I've been trying to push that feature in India for many years. Because of cost reasons, it's still not happened. But now it seems all of a sudden, after Auto Expo when we showed there, that alcolock operators start to show interest. So that is that whenever you are in a bus, the driver cannot start the engine. He has to first blow into this equipment, and if he is not drunk, if the level is normal, only then the vehicle will get started. So he has to pass that test, and I think that will also make a big difference, because we do know that on long distance public transportation, if not on city. There are a number of drivers who tend to break rules because of the hard driving conditions they have, and they end up consuming alcohol, which 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, when most of the twilight is when most of the accidents happen in the truck and bus industry. That's where it shows up really as we go on. Then there are lane departure warning systems, which have come into India now. This is something very normal around the world, which means that there will be signals for that. School buses, where as Aisha we have one of the largest shares in India, every parent wants that the bus has to have a couple of cameras. They should be able to sit at home and watch what time the bus leaves from school, what time is it going to reach the bus stop, so that the child can be received safely. And then, while traveling on the bus, through those cameras, has there been any misbehavior with the child or not? That is being tracked and traced. So I think technology and digitization is doing a lot. With video cameras, a lot more things are to be done and are being done. I'll not talk about it because I know that Netradyne is here. You're doing great work in this area, and you will cover a presentation later. So I will not talk of all those features, because I think that is where, I think it was a good question you have. Is there a scientific intervention or a general intervention which will make a difference? I think technology has a very large role to play as we go on. I'm pleased to state with you that all our Volvo and Eicher trucks and buses sold in India from 1st April 2020, when Bharat Stage 6 came in, are digitized, which means that on my mobile, let's say, if it's 1 million Eicher vehicles on road and 250,000 have come in the last couple of years, there's an app here where the operator can see how many trucks or buses they have, how many are running, how many are idling, how is the driver behavior, is there been any theft of fuel, has there been more braking than normal, is there dangerous driving habits which are coming up, and so on and so on and so forth. So I think technology will be the biggest game changer as we clearly see it in avoiding accidents. But of course, that's one part for me. The other part is, of course, the driver training part. That's a part where we have probably trained now over 100,000 drivers in India, at least on our vehicles. We go to operator sites, we do audits, we run programs for driver training and try to repeat it. So it's not about taking a good name by saying, okay, the first lot of 100 school buses is being sold, I have trained your drivers. It's about being back there 3 months or 6 months later to see, is the driver following what he was? Yeah? So when we do driver training, 25% of the drivers fail. And that certificate, let's say in case of Volvo, driver is not allowed to drive if that certificate is not there. And a driver strives for it, because the moment they have that certificate, their salary goes up by 30% compared to other buses. They are treated differently, their living conditions are a little different because they are a trained driver of Volvo. So I think some of these such things, and when I talk of these things, I know that our problems are enormous. And this is where I bring up the question that we have to create islands of excellence. We all cannot sit and solve everything here. We can talk and talk, but we can't translate it all the time. But let's do and contribute and create small islands of excellence. Show something which is new, which works well somewhere, and then it can be replicated at a large scale. So I think as an OEM, we certainly work for that. The last thing I would like to say is that one of the ways we do it is that since 2008, we, along with the Swedish Embassy, are running what is called a Nobel Week. During Nobel Week, other than our operators, we try to put all other stakeholders together, about 80 to 100 selected who's who of India, from NGOs, from financiers, from people who are in the government, for people who define policies of safety, of road transportation, and We give awards to the best drivers, for example, in state corporations, where it's possible to know how is the driver driving, or we give award to NGOs, which also in monetary terms, which are giving the best suggestions for giving suggestions on public transport. So I think that it's just a drop in the ocean. I don't think it has such a big impact in a country like India, but those are the things which we all need to do in our small way. And I'm sure that if we were to meet here 5-7 years from now, A, technology, B, everybody getting more educated and driving more safely and maturely, we will start to see this trend go down, on which we don't have control as of now in terms of fatalities. So I wish the panel here a very good discussion, and I hope that we all learn from what we hear from each other and can put some things in practice. Thank you.
So before we begin the topic to be discussed today, I would like each one of you to take a minute and talk about what your company does, what field of activity is it in, so that the audience can be suitably informed of the background that you bring to the table. We will start with you, Mr. Umesh. Yeah.
Good evening. Good evening. Okay. So my name is Umesh. I am from Coke, and people who don't know what field and industry Coke is, we should talk. We should talk outside somewhere. So we are one of the largest logistics industry that way in terms of usage of trucks, usage of warehouse space overall in the country. The kind of shipments we do per day are the highest ever as an individual company. And there's a lot of stuff which we do for drivers, for safety, for road safety, for safety within the warehouse, within the plant. It's a multinational corporate which we have our own agenda irrespective of laws which are governing the whole system in India. So love to share a lot of thoughts and a lot of tech interventions which we have done lately, and something which is also in progress. Thank you.
Hi. Hello.
You can take this.
Yeah. Hello. Good evening, and it's great to be here. First of all, great speeches. Really loved the speakers before. My name is Uday Narang. I'm the founder and chairman of Omega Seki Mobility. But really, I'm a disruptor. I'm a green. I'm an ex-Wall Street hedge fund manager who is now a green environmentalist. We are working in the 3-2 4-wheeler in the logistics space, in the electric. I'm born electric. I'm not touching anything that is non-green energy and sustainability. I'm fighting everyone who is not moving towards green energy and sustainability. We believe that this country, my home is in Switzerland, and when our AQI index goes over 25, they damn shut down the city, right? And we're living in a 500 AQI city. 31 of the most polluted cities in the world are in our country. We really got to make a difference. And if we care about our future generation, if we really care about what we want to build, this great nation to the next level, we got to work. So OSM is working on it, but really what I'm working on is trying to build the ecosystem. What's important for me is not just OSM be successful, but the ecosystem be built in this country. And I would really, really hope companies like Coca-Cola and many others would use products, in the non-ICE engine, because, it's time where everybody has to take leadership. So I'm working on that, work on building the ecosystem. Been in this game for quite some time now. See a lot of great new players, and we see wonderful players like Akashi who are building super products. And hopefully, India's now the third largest, automobile market in the world. And I hope in the future, everything's is not just electric, but green energy is, hydrogen or whatever technology that's coming. Thank you very much.
Mr. Shiva?
Yeah. Hi, good evening. I am Shiva Prakash from Transsystem International Logistics Private Limited. I am working as a Vice President Operations, and we are doing for the automobile logistics. including Toyota, and majorly for the OEs and the tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers. So Mr. Pandey said that the driver is the important part of the entire ecosystem. So I'll be touching upon the more into the driver's training part, which we take it as the most important thing in the entire road safety. So I'll be touching upon that. And this company is formed in the year 1999. It's a JV between TCI, the one of the largest logistics company in India, and the Mitsui and Company of Japan, who is a global conglomerate. So with them, we formed the JV, and we are doing initially we have done this JV for the logistics solution for Toyota in India, and later on we moved into the other OEs also. Thank you.
So just to give you a little bit of background on Trans Systems, everybody in sales remembers their first sale that they made. For us in Netradyne, Trans System is the first company that onboarded us, and they gave us the wings to fly.
Thank you.
So thank you for that. And the way we'll keep it very simple. I have got maybe a couple of questions for each of you. So we will start with one question at a time. Umesh, we'll start with you. So first of all, I know that you run a very large, complex logistics operations. And as you mentioned, if you don't know what Coca-Cola is, you will be probably living in a cave or something. So considering that you run such a large and complex operations, I must congratulate you that you won the Supply Chain Award of the Year 2022. So big round of applause for them.
Thank you, thank you.
So not only does he handle large, complex logistics solutions, but he also wins awards for it. So that's credit to them. So based on that, my first question to you is, what are the key challenges facing a company like you, a logistics company like you, for ensuring road safety in India?
So what I'll do is I'll share challenges, I'll also share some solutions which we do. So the first biggest challenge is the driver. The biggest challenge we have is the driver, and we need to take care of the driver. How exactly do we ensure that we first of all have enough drivers? Do we have the culture in India to respect this profession of a truck driver? I don't think so. There's a lot of work which the society overall needs to do to make sure that the driver is equally respected. Today we have statistically roughly more than 15% of shortage of drivers versus the assets we have on the road. And this only increases when we get into season, into summer, when we need more trucks, and when we deploy more, we buy more trucks freshly. So I think there is this big area on drivers which we need to work for. So what we do is, we try and see how we make sure basic amenities for the driver when the driver comes in. For us, yard turnaround time is a very, very key metric, which is operational as well as well-being of a driver. How much is the driver waiting in the yard? So our yard times were close to 8 to 10 hours once upon a time, when we used to ship about 400 to 500 trucks in a day. That are the kind of shipments we do per plant. This is not all across, per plant. So there, the system becomes complex.
And how many plants you have in India?
In India, we have 17 plants, and we have about similar number or more of warehouses. So those many invoicing points, so the drivers report there every day. And there is obviously a chaos because it's a large-scale operation, and it's also an operation which is a little unusual than a normal operation because we have reverse logistics. So he gets glass, he unloads glass, then he comes to the normal dock, he gets loaded back, he goes for a tarpaulin tying, he goes for invoicing, for e-way bill, LR, all of that, and then he does a gate out. So we try and see how we optimize that again using tech. So a conventional way of managing yard is RFID, right? Most of the people use RFID readers and then they track. We use IoT management systems. We use IoT on the dock, and that helps us control it more deeper than a normal conventional RFID. So that's one which we do. We are almost more than 50% reduction in our turnaround time. Year on year is what we are doing right now for the last almost 2 years. So it's been a huge reduction by that time. We are implementing ASRSs and auto-loading systems where we load a truck in less than 3 minutes by press of a button, close to about 1,000 cases, which would otherwise take 90 minutes with 4 people. So those are the kind of efficiency improvements which we do in the system. we have a very interesting concept of something which we call as a driver management center, where we do counseling with the driver, understand what is his work pattern, has he taken enough rest. We invest in resting rooms within the plant. So if the driver is found not rested well in the last 8 to 10 hours, he's supposed to go and take a nap and then come back when he's fresh and he's again done a counseling, and then we give him the load. Otherwise, we don't give him the load. All of this DMC now, which is managed manually by external agencies.
And this you have done on your own thought process. There's no instruction from the government for you.
No, zero. So we do it on our own to make sure we take care of the road safety and accidents which happen. So we counsel and do everything. Now all of this which is done by an external agency, we are doing it through a robot. So all of this now, because you can't afford this for every plant, you will choose 8 to 9 big plants, 40-50% of your volume where it comes from, and you will try to invest there. But you lose on the other 40-50%, where you don't have this. And then it becomes a very visible difference that this is making a difference and this is not. So I want to cover it and you don't have money for it because it's too expensive. The moment you use technology, I have a robot, it can go everywhere. So even if I have 50 shipments in a depot, which is a very small place somewhere, let's say northeast, we will still want to have a robo there, we will still want to have the same process there, we will still want to have the same education to the driver. And that's how that robo helps.
So this is a robo that moves, or is it stationary?
Stationary. It's a static robo. And all the gadgets of drink and drive, fatigue, AI cameras, all of that is built in there, and he talks to the driver in local language. It's 11 language robo. Wow. And it takes care of the whole counseling like a normal human would. And it also has data of his past trip, how was he driving, what is the GPS data, harsh acceleration, harsh braking, all of that it will give him. And make sure, just like a human interaction, it'll do it with the driver. So I'm just saying that there are all these kind of technology solutions available which are now not that non-affordable in India. They are all affordable. AI and IoT sensors are like a commodity, and we can get them done in India very soon. So that one biggest piece is the driver. The other biggest piece is investing into a lot of technology where there is no payback. See, the value of human life is obviously, you can't measure it. So safety is super important. There are responsible companies, but let's agree there are also companies who don't take interest in this. And you need to give them a reason to do a payback. So we find that many such solutions which come up in the market, they are not very payback friendly. They don't wrap it up with a functional efficiency. For example, GPS gives a lot of safety data, but it also gives a lot of safety data, or a lot of functional data on the turnaround time. So if using that track and trace data, you are able to reduce 4 hours of turnaround time of a trip and add one more trip in the month, that is good enough for you to fund for all the safety benefits it comes up with. So the mindset is something which also needs to change, and people need to try and see how we wrap it up with a functional efficiency so that your CFO approves it. Not only CFO, you also are convinced that, okay, this overall makes sense. So there are many things which you can do. Ideally, you can have a fatigue camera also. But does that make sense? It won't. The cost of a camera on a truck for every driver for 7,000 shipments a day, which we do, it will not be worth it. There will be no functional benefit I'll get from it. It will be largely only, yes, I may be able to save some incidents, accidents, but are there other ways of doing it? Maybe people will resort to those rather than that investment. So those are a couple of challenges which we still have.
Well, you have answered the second question as well. So for you, only one question. All right, Uday, you prefer to be called as Mr. Electric, and you want nothing to do with the traditional fossil fuels whatsoever.
I'm not Mr. Electric. I want to do anything that is we want to be working on green energy. Hydrogen is there, and many other technologies, but I think it's very important that we all really move towards it. I really, really think.
This mic is not green.
All right. So currently, you're offering in India, you are having a 6.5-ton GVW truck, which is a commercial sale. Apart from that, you have done extensive testing on a 3.5-ton GVW, which is ready for a commercial launch anytime. You have also announced in the recent Auto Expo that you are going to launch a 1.5-ton GVW truck as well. So your focus is more on the lighter segment of the trucks.
Why?
Why? Because...
Yeah, so that...
yeah.
All right, since he asked the question, why?
Sure.
Because we want it.
Yeah. Look, the key part in this country is, and please don't take it wrong, nobody wants to pay. Everybody wants a Ferrari for a pride for Maruti, and I'm sure you see it, Akasha. You see everyone, in an electric business. When we go and we talk about safety, we talk about better products, to the logistics space. And so nothing against logistics space. The logistic boys and girls just don't want to pay. They want a super truck. They want everything. And they say, I'm working on my Hindi a little bit, so they say, हमें उस ICE engine का ये price है, इससे नीचे होना चाहिए. So the commitment to green energy and sustainability is not there. I'm sorry, right? But the reason to answer your question, I have got all the trucks up to the higher, but it doesn't work because today, for technology, for all of that, you have to pay. And you don't want to pay. You'll say, I'm working in next week, I've got a testing going on 1-ton trucks with a very significant European logistic player, the 1-ton, the 1.5-ton. And they are comparing, they have talked about huge, green energy and sustainability platform. But when it comes to the cost, the guy said, too expensive, right? So, but the 1-ton truck is where the 1 to 1.5 ton, it's got 300,000 vehicles in this country. It's a sweet spot. And for me to get, scale, size, to be able to get the ecosystem built, I need to focus on that. We've got a 3.5-ton truck, which has done very well. But the demand, and really we're not ready for the cost, right? In my opinion, we've got to think about the benefits that green energy brings. I think the companies, we work with very large companies, and no one, honestly, even no one wants to pay. And I think we are figuring out that cost in the 1-ton. And if we can crack the code there, then we can move up the chain. We have all the trucks, but I think it's going to, the 6.5 and above is going to take time because there is no, I was talking to Akashji, we meet at these conferences and we say we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And there's nobody doing it. There's no subsidy on the trucks. There's no FAME subsidy on the trucks. I don't think anything's on the horizon. I think maybe it's not a bad idea. It's going to make all of us stand on our 2 feet. I am willing to put the trucks on the ground, even if it doesn't make money right now, because I think somebody's got to take the leadership in that to be able to bring, and if I need to, I'm a big football man. It's like Liverpool says, you'll never walk alone. But if I need to walk alone, I'll walk alone. I think that's the mentality I've had right from the beginning. I am very happy to work with guys like you and many others we are working with. But the logistic companies have to change this mentality. They've got to be part of it. But the answer to your question is they just don't pay. And I think the 1-ton can be a solution.
So speaking of which, that question was his question. That was not my question.
Sure.
My question is, you spoke of ecosystem. What were the challenges you faced while setting up a EV truck manufacturing unit in India? Because nobody else has done it before. You're the first, I guess.
No, there's more. Look, I think there are people that are working on. Leyland is in it. Obviously.
But not
Tata,
yet commercially launched.
No, Tata has launched it's a 600 kg truck. Right. It's in there. Daimler has it, but the cost is very high. See, you can't run Daimler trucks in this country on that price. But I think that the ecosystem which you talked about, we've got to make sure. I'm working on something in fast charging which will reduce the cost. I'm continually working because no matter what you want cheap. You want it because your customers aren't paying you. You got it. So what I'm saying is your customers aren't paying, you don't want to pay, right? So the point is, how do I bring, right now my truck is doing, the 1-ton is doing about 150 to 180 kilometers on a single charge, right, fully loaded. I need to make sure that I get to a cost of about 10 lakhs, okay, for that kind of a truck. So how do I bring the battery cost down, how to bring the powertrain cost down? So I'm working on swap, I'm working on fixed, I'm working on fast charging. How do I get the charging infrastructure set up? How do I get the supply chain sorted out? How do I get, and I don't want to just, for OSM, I've always focused on rural India. For me, India is not Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore. It is outside, it's tier 2, 3, 4 cities. That's when you're going to get the scale. I don't want to just talk about silent revolution of a hydrogen Toyota running or whatever car just in New Delhi. we need to have them all across this country. So we've got to work on it. Look, Rome wasn't built in one day. This is not going to be done. But what I do see, very much a lot of people here and in many other places where the movement has become. India is the third largest automobile market. I think, in the two-wheeler sector, it is already a very high percentage. Three-wheeler is already 50 to 60%. Now, we're talking about maybe 1 million passenger vehicles in the year 2030. The ecosystem is being built. Again, it is an alliance-based business. I think we've got to have OEMs. We have to have charge point operators. We've got to have charging infrastructure. We've got to have companies like Coca-Cola and many others. We've got to have Volvo, the buses they're working. We've got all of these companies that are here. I think the ecosystem has challenges, but I think it is being built on a regular basis.
Thank you. That was quite insightful. Mr. Shivprakash, I've already given an introduction about your company. So what are the challenges? Can you throw some light on how technology has helped you improve your fleet operations, logistics, etc.?
Maybe I'll start with what we did earlier and what we are doing now.
You want this mic?
Yeah. Hello. Yeah. So I'll touch upon what we were doing earlier and what we are doing right now. So from the day one, we started as driver as our partner. This is the culture we imbibed. So as someone told, driver is we normally treat him as a third-rate citizen. So instead of doing that, we partnered him as our family and we started training to them. So initially we were doing with the manual kind of thing. We hired people like an ex-military man, so who brings into the discipline into the training. So we hired them and we started doing the trainings and especially focusing on the road safety. Now, within a closed premises, whether it is factory or whether it's in a yard, we can control and monitor them. When they are going into the road, they are not being controlled. So during that period, we started manually monitoring with them. Then as soon as the GPS technology started in India, way back maybe 2005-06, we were the first one who installed the GPS in our trucks. So with GPS, we started the monitoring. Now, with the GPS also, we had multiple challenges. What happened, we were using or we are using multiple vendors with us. So each one of them are having their own GPS service provider. So they are having their own credentials for login ID and passwords. So how do we monitor them? Then we started the 24/7/365 kind of route controlling, which we call as route controlling. We used to have many number of people working in 3 shifts. They are actually monitoring the driver's behavior en route, whether they are doing the overspeeding, whether they are doing the night driving, or many things, which are abnormal behavior, which we capture and we used to them give the real-time feedback. Like someone is doing the night driving. Night driving is not allowed in our operations between 11 to in the morning 5. If someone does the night driving, our team will call him and tell that you are doing the night driving, you have to stay in such and such places. In the en route, we have predefined locations where drivers have to take rest, the dabas or the rest points which we have. All India basis, we have many rest points, many tie-up with the petrol pumps wherein they can park their trucks and they actually take the rest in the room or they take the rest in the truck itself. So that kind of monitoring we started. And then the challenge of having the multiple GPS service providers in one system, how do we make it? So we integrated all these GPS in one system. So this is way back in 2014-15 we started. We were the first one who integrated actually this system into one.
And that technology was your technology?
No, we used third party and we did that integration. See, every GPS service provider started giving us the API, which is integrated, and in one login ID password, we can have a dashboard, complete dashboard, and we can see the total number of trucks which are operating for us. So that way we started monitoring. Then whatever the route controlling which we had, the many people, we brought it down to maybe few, maybe 5, 6 members now. They are doing in shift 24/7. So that way we started monitoring. Now, of late we are doing, as you rightly mentioned, we started using the Netradyne also. So in the GPS we have limitation that whenever drivers does any mistake or any abnormality, driver never used to agree that, oh, maine nahi kiya. They always tell that, maine nahi kiya, sir. वो तो speedometer का issue था, मैंने नहीं देखा. So this is what used to happen. So we started using the Netradyne, and wherein you can actually see whether the drivers are wearing the seat belt or not, whether he is talking over phone while driving or not. Then we started showing them that see, you did this one. So showing something them that makes the difference. Right. They then agree and they say that, okay, galti ho gaya sir, aage se nahi karunga. So that improvement we started seeing. So that's why you can see that initially we had the POC trials with your device, and now we have started using in a bulk quantity. So that's how we started using the technology also. So of late we started using the driving simulator also, wherein we actually simulate the various conditions like highway driving, city driving, and hilly road driving.
So you have a machine for that?
Yes. We have actually a driver cabin with the computer integrated simulation, wherein you can actually simulate the various kind of whatever the actual situations we can simulate and train.
I think, Pandit, that's a great idea for you to
Yes.
look at other companies. If everybody can have a simulator.
I'll be visiting him just to have a look at it.
Yeah. So these kind of technology we started using, and we are using that to give the training to the drivers. And one more thing what we do is, just to add few more points, whenever there is any abnormality or any near miss case or any accident, we do the complete root cause analysis. And then we do we call it as 5M analysis, man, machine, material management method. So what went wrong? Whether it is due to management issue, or is it because of man, the driver, or it is because of machine. As Mr. Pandey told, 96% or 97% is because of the man, the accidents happen. So that analysis we have done. And we also use the Henrich principle. There is a 329:1 ratio.
Can you explain?
Henrich principle. There will be 300 near miss or minor accident cases, and 29 cases of accident wherein some injuries might have happened, and one is the major accident, which is a fatal accident. So that principle we use. So what we do is we encourage the drivers to give the whatever the near miss cases what have happened with when they are in the en route. So we do kind of a pre-dispatch counseling and post-journey counseling. The pre-dispatch is before he goes to the trip, and once he comes back, we do the post-journey counseling. In that pre-dispatch counseling, we tell that this particular route you are going, there are so many hazard locations, you need to take care.
So who does this? Who does the counseling?
We have the team. We have separate team. What we do is
Internal.
We have separate safety team. Under them, these counselors are there, and also the ex-military man as a driver trainers under them. They are not part of the operation team. So they have the independent responsibility. They have to do that each and every trip. So in that we take their feedback, drivers' feedback. Okay, यहाँ इस रोड में अभी काम चल रहा है, तो हाईवे का एक्सपेंशन काम चल रहा है, ये प्रॉब्लम है. So the roads are the dynamic situation. So each and every trip, after the trip, we get the information which we put into the GPS as a geofence. And whenever his truck goes near to that location, he gets that alert. You are about to reach the hazard location, please take care. So those kind of technology we started using. So it's a combination of or the hybrid solution of technology and as the legacy system which we are using to train the drivers. As Mr. Pandey rightly told, drivers, The others are maybe the fixed one or which is beyond our control. Like the trucks which we are getting now, of course, it's a very advanced and it's very well made trucks. But the road condition, it's a given condition. So which is controllable? Drivers. So train the drivers. That's what we are doing.
Can I add something? Please, go ahead. So we follow the same principle of training, but we do it a little differently because of the scale which we handle. We literally can't have people doing it. So we have something called as an e-learning kiosk, which is a kiosk where the driver comes in and he has to log in for authenticity through his phone. And then he is trained in a local language. And there are about 48 modules which gets covered, and all of them are automatic. So because there is profiling, the system knows that he has gone through 20 modules and 28 are pending, and that's how it will give an alert. And also there is a central cloud where the safety team is tracking behaviors, and suddenly if there is a behavior of overspeeding in a particular geography, they can say that overspeeding should come up again and again and again, so that he gets a refresher. And that video is animated completely. And it's very, very touchy, because it includes the family of the driver, of what will happen if something happens to him, what will happen to his child, to his family, and what he will go through, and all that creates a larger impact. And each video is not more than 3 minutes.
So is this a video that you can share in the public domain?
Yeah, we can. So it takes only about 3 minutes for him, and we ensure that it does not go beyond, so that it creates that impact. And it's not like a classroom session where he sits, and it also does not impact your volume or your throughput. It's a part of the process. And once he does that, he gets a loading ticket like a boarding pass. Only then he will be allowed to load on the dock. So we try to do the same thing broadly, but try to see how we add tech to it so that it becomes more sustainable.
Yeah, this kiosk, what you said, we are also using that.
Okay.
So the drivers come up there and he has to pass that also. That's one of the. And one more thing, what interesting part is that every day morning we do, irrespective of where our location, we do that KYT, Kiken Yochi training, which is a Japanese term, danger prediction training, Kiken Yochi training. So wherein whoever is there, the head of that location, he attends that in the driver's training session, and he, along with the drivers, take oath that safety related what are the do's and don'ts he has to do when he is on the duty. That we do. And another point what we say is that always, see, पुलिस से बचाने के लिए तुम कुछ मत करना, पुलिस को तो पेनाल्टी दे के बच सकते हो, अगर तुमको कुछ हो गया तुम्हारा फैमिली को कौन देखेगा. दैट इमोशनल सेंटिमेंट वी ब्रिंग इन. Yeah, that is very important. Then उनको उसको पता चलता, हाँ, this is what if something happens to me, what will happen to my family. That way we tell.
Very good. In fact, my question to you was going to be on innovations only, which you have kind of, you initially took me by surprise by saying robo. And I was like, I've never seen a robo in operation. So I would very much like to visit your premises and see how it works, so that maybe we can take a few learnings and add it onto our device and make it even better.
Sure, pleasure.
So he is the only user here, the rest of most of the crowd here are service providers. So as a user, his intake and his inputs will be very different from what the inputs of other people are. So it's always good to pick minds and understand how people think. Uday, you've been relatively silent. So one question for you, apart from the challenges which you mentioned, how do you improve driver behavior? What is your take on driver behavior? Is it required? And how do you improve it for a manufacturing company? And you sell these vehicles to other customers. So do you think driver behavior has to be monitored, has to be improved? And if yes, what is your take on it?
Look, first of all, I'd like to say, I would like more women drivers too. Everybody says he, but we should have a lot of, I'm a big proponent of Nari Shakti, and I think in this country we've got a big, powerful, so it only should not be he, it should be she, because I think women drivers, from what we have seen, are even better than men drivers because they're much more focused than men drivers. The other thing, I'm going to talk about safety, but I really, really think, okay, it's possible, I could say Coca-Cola and what you're doing, but the average truck driver is not getting paid well, okay? I think their wages are very, very poor. And I think if you look at, if you look at what happens in the United States, what happens in Canada, what happens in Europe, what happens other places, even in Thailand, the wages of our driver are pathetic, to be honest. It's because we can do, safety is very important, but that person has to be paid well. I just think they're at the bottom end of the ladder. It is not a path that when young men and women of this country, you ask, do you want to be a driver? I don't think so. I don't think so. And I think this is very important. Safety is important. Technology is important. All of this is important. But that man and woman driving that truck, making hardly any income, is not going to be, his focus being on the phone or doing other things which are breaking lights. I see this a lot across this country. Safety, we've come up with something which just now is where at night, on the windscreen, if the driver's drowsy, it sends a signal, right? So that is something that we have worked on in electric truck. The other thing is the electric vehicles don't make any noise. So it's a very different sort of experience. And I would recommend all of you to come and experience the driving of an electric truck. It's extremely powerful. I test them all the time at night, in Faridabad, in Chakan, in Tamil Nadu, in Karnataka, especially in rural areas. I think, giving the safety instructions and training is extremely important. But incentivizing them, and making sure, we talk about sleeping, but majority of this country, if you look at the dhabas, or if you look at the, conditions of where they are sleeping, if you look at a European truck and you look at a truck on what we got in India, come on, there's no sleeping quarters. He's just sleeping in the side, in the heat, in the cold. So in our trucks, we're putting air conditioning, we're putting heating. Once the driver drives in an air-conditioned truck, he or she won't drive in a non-air conditioned truck, right? We've got to give the quality of life to our drivers much, much more. And I think safety will be important, but if you don't give them that sort of knowledge, education, and I'll tell you in the future, we're going to have a real problem with truck drivers because no youngster wants to be a truck driver because it's a very hard life, right? And I think we've got to work on that. I think we've got to figure out how, with us, what we're doing is we're making sure that the truck, when he or she drives it, it feels like it's better than their home. It feels that they have ownership. They have to feel the ownership of the vehicle. So look, it's an experience. I think there is a lot of work to be done. And I think, it's glad to see when Coca-Cola or companies like yourself, I know your company well. We know we know Mitsui very well also. So I think there is a movement towards it, but a lot more needs to be done. And I think and I'm going to keep coming out, when you get out of these big cities, the whole landscape changes. You get out of these, 20, 10, 15 cities, the landscape out there needs a lot of work. And the infrastructure building is fantastic. Like, Pandeyji talked about. This country is moving in listen, this has got so much hope and our chance. I think India is where China was 1999. We can really do a lot. We have the young population. We have a population that is learning. We want to use technology. Every day, leaders across the world are Indian. I think all those leaders need to come to this country to build better products, safer products, and build better companies. Thank you.
So in this discussion, I learned a few new things. One was the kiosk, one was the simulator, one was the robo. And I think he deserves an applause for mentioning that ladies should also be drivers. It's a fact that is overlooked, and we take it for granted that women commercial vehicles combination is not fine.
So in forklifts and reach trucks, this has started. We ourselves have factories where we have started, but trucks, not yet. So trucks, I think we were working with the Logistics Skill Council, and I think Akhilesh ji knows this, Ramesh. And we tried to do that, but we were not very successful with women getting trained because our focus was more fresh drivers. our ask to the skill council was, don't get us drivers who are already drivers. Then there's no point of adding drivers. We need fresh set of drivers where we can make double drivers, or we can add more capacity and get drivers. And if there can be women, it'll be great. So he could help us for forklifts, but not for truck drivers. That's still an area.
It's actually very nascent stage, we can say.
Yeah.
But there are a couple of drivers, women drivers, truck drivers, I know. There are.
I have seen lady bus drivers in
Bus
southern
drivers,
states.
bus drivers are there.
Cabs also have started. Cab drivers also. Yeah.
Yeah. One or two more points. Actually, we do this en route surprise audit.
Yeah, that's exactly
Yeah.
what you can finish your
And en route surprise audit, when actually we go, our team goes there and they do the auditing, the truck auditing, how the drivers are actually driving. So that also gives some kind of fear or message to the driver. Oh, kab aayega, kya hai, pata nahi hai. So that gives them some kind of following the rules or SOPs. Right. That's one thing. One more thing is that we actually have a test track, the physical test track to with simulation of like low hanging the wire or the
Tension cable.
the crossings,
Yeah.
railway crossings, and the trees. There are cases of trees hitting. When we transport the car in a car carrier which is of about 60 feet length with 4.75 meter, 15 feet almost height,
Yep.
it touches the tree branches. So we simulate that and then we train the drivers.
Thank you, Economic Times and Netradyne, for continuing their pursuit for the road safety. It's always pleasure to interact with the experts who are working in the road safety field. And thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for waiting patiently for the last concluding things which I am going to say about the road safety. Let me share an experience. When I started the journey of road safety, just after completing the FASTag with World Economic Forum, I said I will be working into the technology-driven road safety. And that's how the name I gave it to Road Safety 2.0, World Economic Forum initiative. A lot of people, my friends, asked me, "Arey Achilles, your hangover of FASTag hasn't gone yet. Technology and road safety, these are two different domains. How are you merging it? It's not going to work. Road safety is exclusively a job of road engineers, highway engineers, or the road engineers primarily, and whatever is left over, that is a part of the OEMs, the vehicle manufacturers. How come technology come into in between?" I said, see, technology is everywhere. It's across the thing. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy when I see the journey in the last couple of years, how things has changed dramatically. And now I see a lot of companies, the people talking about technology, conferences being held like this, ministry is talking, Niti Aayog is talking, the ecosystem is building up. I keep on talking to various stakeholders, the highway operator, TOT operators, those people who matters, who maintain the road, the drivers, the kind of technology being discussed for training the drivers. So everybody is talking about the technology, how technology is actually making change. And it's actually, I will share my experience of the few pilots which we did with the World Economic Forum. One such pilot was, I was just looking, what is the biggest pain area? See, it's a multi-layered complex problem. It's not a simple problem, a road safety. It's a number of issues are there. Drivers are there, road is there, vehicle is there, enforcement is issue, post in case accident takes place, subsequent. So, and it's a multi-layered complex problem. But we have to start somewhere, which is the most impactful thing which we can start. And what Mr. Pandey said at the beginning, the lowest hanging fruit which I could find was the drivers, number one. That was very well, now it's documented, now everybody who are working in it, they know it makes direct impact and very quickly. Now, how you're going to train the drivers, number one, and what are the basic mistakes why accidents were taking place? We did analysis along with IIT Delhi, where I started doing a part-time PhD to learn more about road safety and ITS. The studies which we did with my guide and others, again brought out another thing, that the over speeding or say the enforcement, that's the another major factor into that. So how are we, though, I mean, a lot of debates are there that over speeding is a general cause written by police while recording an accident, may not be a very truthful data, but then we verified it on the ground. And it's actually fact, you see the 2-3 high profile accidents which took place, the primary reason was the accident, I mean the over speed. Other reasons act as a catalyst. The road, suddenly the road converts into 3 to 2 lane when Cyrus, that unfortunate accident took place. Similarly, when this cricketer, I mean the primary reason always remains the speed, and the other things act as a catalyst. So how can we do enforce? And now comes the third thing, the poor enforcement. What can be done to improve the enforcement? ITS, of course, a solution which I had been doing at NHAI, putting ATMS solution. But what Mr. Pandey said, absolutely right thing. We are having a crisis of police manpower who are the actually enforcer. We keep on watching the videos or the clips which cameras are collecting on highways, but ultimately the enforcement, somebody has to send a challan, and the challan is to be sent by the police because it's a sovereign work. A private concessionaire or operator cannot. Apart from the figure what he quoted, if I talk about the number of policemen per 1 lakh of population, in India, the global average is 560 policemen per 1 lakh of population. In Scandinavian countries, Sweden and other, it's more than 800, considering the small population size of that. US, it is around 580, near to the average. But in India, it's I mean, he gave some figures, but if I convert into it, it is 139 policemen per 1 lakh of population. So we have 1/4, roughly, the policemen who are busy with such a large population, the very high population density, law and order scenarios, VIPs, duties, and so many things. Expecting the policeman to be always in front of a command control center generating challan immediately, it's highly improbable. We have to put technology into this as well, like generating e-challan automatically and all. But what if, why should we, and if you again do a spectrum, you will find the violators are very small in numbers. I mean, I was implementing a project on Eastern Peripheral Expressway, the first of its kind ATMS project. I was heading that project. We were implementing on Eastern Peripheral near Delhi. During this, we did a pilot to check what is the overspeed limit. You'll be surprised. I mean, this was done using Doppler technology. Can anybody guess what could have been the speed, the highest speed on this Eastern Peripheral Expressway? You'll be amazed to listen the highest speed. When I ask this question, people say around 180, 200 kilometer. No, ladies and gentlemen, it was 295 kilometer, the speed of the vehicle, the highest speed which we recorded. And the pilot was done for only 1 month. If a vehicle is driving on an expressway or a national highway at the speed of 295 kilometer, it's like a missile, it's a bomb. A small incident can just blow it away, and not only this guy is going to die, it's a misguided missile. Wherever the people who survived on that day, they must be thankful to the God that they traveled with a missile, but they somehow came back safely to the home. And the people, and this was the highest speed, but above 250, where more than 50 drivers, 50 vehicles we could see. 200 plus was, I mean, huge numbers were there. So that's how. So how can we improve this? Relying just on police probably may not work. We did, and we try to do self-motivation kind of enforcement, a softer kind of enforcement, where we, instead of focusing, wasting energy, time on identifying the wrongdoers. Let's encourage the larger population who are driving good, but they are left unrecognized. And in that, the concept came of safe driving score. During the pilot, we started giving 1 point to any commercial driver. The pilot was done on 10,000 drivers, which increased to subsequently 25,000 drivers. We started giving 1 point for every kilometer run in a safe way, within the speed limit, following the other safety norms, and taking the prescribed breaks and all as per the policy. He scores 1 point per day, so if per kilometer run. So if we run 500 kilometer, ideally they should earn 500 points. But that was not the case. If they overspeed, first alert comes, and then the points start reducing. If they caught drowsy, then 100 points is straightway deducted. So these were the certain challenges these were the negative points. So at the end of the journey, he is supposed to accumulate certain points. If you say a driver in a month drives for 500 kilometers, 5,000 kilometers in a month, a commercial vehicle driver I'm talking, they should ideally have some 5,000 if they are the perfect driver. In the first month, the average score was 2,200. That means there has been a lot of compromises. That's why the score were less. But the good thing was the scores kept on increasing month on month. Second month, the average went to 2,700 plus, third month 3,200. And when we ended this pilot, the highest score was, which was awarded in one of the function of the Road Safety Week very recently. These drivers score more than 4,500. The highest was 4,800 in 1 month. Almost near to the perfection. That means this takes you, if the technology and the encouragement which we gave was awarding some points to them, giving some money against those points, and that was being supported by us. So those were these kind of enforcement mechanism, when we encourage people self-motivation to improve your driving behavior, that works. It actually works, and the fantastic result which I should discuss with you, after 6 months we found 0 fatality. The drivers who has been constantly being monitored, there was 0 fatality, absolutely nil. When I was making this presentation in one of the talks, Honorable Minister was sitting here. He was totally surprised, and in fact he asked me to come with the detail, and he also promised me that we will be issuing, making this mandatory. Some advisory should be issued on this. When every driver, commercial vehicle driver, they should be having a safe driving score, and that's what should be, in fact. Every driver, not somebody was talking about the driving license, how driving license came when he was a kid. So I'm not going to those details, how to improve the driving license pattern and those things. And of course, government is doing a lot of things to improve it. But once license is given, that should not be the end. The driver should be monitored almost on real-time basis with the technologies available, which is doable. Like the driving score is one such thing. Netradyne and I see they are also scoring the device which they have. Similar devices are coming up by many more people. So momentum has started, use of technology into it. Another thing which we did is the improving the driving license pattern. On this safe driving score, it's already in a very, and one more thing I would like to share. I took this to the IRD insurance companies. I said that this is since you now have a visibility into the driving pattern, the higher the score means the better driver means lesser chance of accident. So you can reduce the premium based on the driving score. Initially they said that's not possible, rule doesn't permit. So I gave a presentation, had a couple of meetings with IRDA chairman, and I'm happy that they accepted it. Now the rule has been changed. The rule says, the regulation says that how you drive will be one of the parameters to decide the insurance. It can be tweaked. So it's not that things doesn't move. If somebody, if it is started with a true earnest in a proper way, things moves on and action are taken. second thing which we are doing is, another thing which we need is, instead of having a generalized approach, there has to be focused and segmented kind of target. For example, the drivers training. And there were a lot of discussions that women are better drivers. They are indeed better drivers. We did a study. There is an NGO called MOVO, mobility, that works on the mobility of the women. So the name has also come like this. They did a study on this, and the women are better driver because of their natural better eye and hand coordination. So they are, and they are better learned. That apart from their this issue, they learn. When we did a research, how many people learn the driving and what was the way they learned driving? Did they go to some school or they learned it from their peer group? You will be surprised to know the figure was 76% learned from their friends, their parents, their elder brother, or somebody took them to the some field some time back. 2-3 rounds they made, and then they switched the seat and they came back. That used to be the way the license was issued earlier. But now things has changed. The driving license are, robust tests are being done, more training are there, but women are doing it better. So that's why I was saying, when we did the survey, we found that women actually go to the driving school almost 50% more in numbers than the men. So they are more trained. And that pattern should be. Another case I will just share. I hope I am not taking time. Please remind me. I am just talking my heart away. There was a during the training of the drivers. Now you see the current thing says that 29 hours of driving total duration should be there, out of which 19 hours should be the training on the various rules, regulations, theoretical. 8 hours will be on practical based on IoT device, where I had now asked for that this driving score should be monitored and some threshold should be given. 1,000 points should be there to driving license to be issued. Government has yet to take a call on it, but they are working positively on it. 2 hours should be on a simulation, because you can't take risk. The simulation is always required. The driver has to see the scenario, how it is going. I will give an example which by this example I could convince ministry to take a call on this. There was near Nagpur, they have created another, very recently, a new highway has been made towards the, and not the Samriddhi I am talking, towards the Mumbai. There was already an NH, there is a bridge on that. The new highway which has been made is slightly away, so they have now made it one way for going and other bridge for coming back. But the other bridge takes slightly, maybe 1.5 kilometer distance length, maybe more. One fine evening, a bus, transport bus was moving from Nagpur to Mumbai, carrying some around 56 passengers. Suddenly, 3 bikers, the young boys, came from Mumbai side on the same bridge. They were coming on the wrong side. They came to this bridge, and this driver, the bus driver, just trying to save them, he tried to take the turn, and bus unfortunately fell into the river, and more than 40 people died. Now, whose fault is this? See, the people who are sitting in the bus, the driver was on the correct lane. He was following the rule. He was going in the correct way. People drowned because of the fault of the driver. I will say not the fault of driver, because those people, this was a call a driver was to take. He could have taken a call. Had this been run on a simulation, if such scenario comes, you can't do it on live, but had it been done on a simulation, he could have taken a call. There is, I have to save these 654 people. Let's drive on. If these boys who are as it is coming on from wrong side, if something goes, there is a reason for that. Or probably they may jump into the river, or they may be saved. But then killing these people is totally unethical. there's no explanation for that. I said that this can be learned only through simulation. In reality, you can't kill people and then start learning and say, no, next time I'm going to improve. So, and that's why this new law has come, that 2 hours will be given to the drivers on a simulation where he has to learn such kind of scenario which usually happens. Another very interesting thing which we discussed, we recently studied with ICAT, I will just share. If a driver is alerted just 2 seconds before the accident, you know, around 70% of accident can be saved, just 2 seconds. But how driver can be alerted to just prior to accident, because nobody knows, I mean, it's not astrology or chemistry that such and such time going to be accident. So 2 minutes early, or 2 seconds early to that, the driver is made alert. The technology can. So if technology is there, technology is watching the drivers, continuous tracking the driving pattern. It is also sensing the, for example, the Netradyne equipment is doing, it's looking at the front camera, the complete scenario outside, it is looking inside. This is connected to the cloud with the 5G network coming in. Real-time transmission can alert the driver. Actually, 2 seconds earlier to that, yeah, now you should be careful, and probability of a fatal accident will reduce by at least 70%. So these are the wonderful things going on, and I congratulate ET and Netradyne again for organizing such kind of thought-provoking talks, the panel discussions, where people learn about these things, what is happening in this road safety field, and fortunately things are going good. I'm sure maybe in 2 to 3 years, we will start looking, the good thing about technology is that it brings the things very quickly. The impact is phenomenal. When I was implementing FASTag, we see when it was up to 60%, it took 3 years, but from 60 to 97% just took 3 months. So the moment it promotes, it's going to bring down the accident fatalities drastically below. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. And any questions, all we can discuss during the dinner time. Thanks.
So, good evening, everybody. I think it has been a lovely evening, and I'm extremely happy about one fact, Nikhil, that the previous speaker just announced that women are excellent drivers. So today, that is going to be my take home.
Yes,
that research
absolutely.
has proven that women are excellent drivers. So thank you so much for joining us for this chat today, Nikhil. Nikhil, now CJ Darcel is among the topmost logistic companies in India today. Can you tell us more about as to what kind of different logistic solutions do you offer to your clients, and also little about the scale that we have?
So thank you ET and Netradyne for having me over. I think big shoes to fill in too after listening to the esteemed guest who spoke before me. So CJ Darcel is a JV between CJ Logistics of South Korea and Darcel, which is a 4-decade-old Indian, started as a single truck company, and now I think we are proud to say that we've got over 1,000 trucks, as well as over 2 lakh vendor partners that we use their services to fulfill our customers' requirements. Along the journey in the last 4 decades, I think we've moved on from road to rail to coastal to a lot of other services that we could provide to our clients. So that has been the journey. And CJ, with them, they bring in around 6 decades of experience. So between both of us, I think we've got around 100 years of experience. That is what we joke around internally, right? So that's most about the CJ Darcel Logistics, what we do in India today.
Okay, all right. Now talking about, of course, we have been speaking a lot about technology today, and it is time where a major shift is happening from the traditional operations space to technological run operational space. How do you keep your organization, in the tech front?
So I think we've always been very about technology. We always try to be at the forefront of technology and the changes that we could probably bring into the ecosystem. But I think it's easier now than what it was 10 or 15 years back, because adaptation or culture change was a big problem then. You could probably come out with solutions, but people were not ready to change themselves, right? I think it's become a lot easier now with everyone using WhatsApp, and everyone has a smartphone. Probably 5 years back, I think if we were to look at our drivers, a lot of them would still have that, basic CDMA or feature phone. Now, when we look at it, I think almost 99% have smartphone. Everyone knows how to operate YouTube, how to use WhatsApp. So it has become much easier. Internally, yes, when we want to talk about driver apps and all these things, there is a problem that people don't want to take that change because they bring that transparency would not be effective for them. But that culture, I think we've been trying to, with a lot of awareness, with a lot of training modules, we've been able to do that. Similarly, on the organizations side, I think we've been able to train our people to work smartly and not, I would say that we are always a hard-working organization. We've been trying to make it a smart working organization. I think people are getting used to it, and it's become much easier now. And I think we are seeing that change happening in our organization.
That is great. Also, it's a lovely audience. I have to take a minute to point that out. And I know it is dinner time. I'm already getting the looks. So we are going like that mad truck on the highway, which we spoke about at 240 kilometers probably. So Nikhil, another thing, Netradyne is revolutionizing fleet safety in a huge manner. And you have also recently announced that you've gone into a collaboration with them. So could you tell us more about what kind of products, services will you be taking? What kind of a support will you be taking from them? And how will it impact your current business?
So currently, I'm happy to announce that we've signed up with Netradyne to onboard all our vehicles with their hardware and software, right? And I think this change came in because accidents do happen, right? We would not want them to happen, but every time an accident took place, I think we would do a root cause analysis. The worst part of the entire ecosystem was that root cause analysis would not give us the kind of data that we would want so that it can be avoided out of those learnings in future, because you would have a GPS, which would tell you probably the speed at what, or probably what time he was driving. Right? So that you can probably say, okay, it was a night driving, so maybe that would have caused, or the speed was not right, right? And then there is the driver's statement. You would ask the driver what happened. And he could give you any sort of logic, and you would probably have to agree to him that, okay, this do happen, and this might have happened. But out of that, the takeaways were very few.
Like somebody said, ki maine to nahi kara.
Maine to nahi kara, right, absolutely, right? So, for the longest time, the solution was not available. But I think when we came across Netradyne, so we had a look at it, and we felt that a lot of those data points are captured there. Okay. Right? There were other devices which were available, but I think hats off or credit to them that the algo that they have set in, which gives our control tower only the issues which were generated. Otherwise, you can't really ask your control tower or manpower to go in 24 or hours and hours of videos to point out what went wrong, or which driver did what mistake, whether it caused an accident or whether it was an issue or not. Yeah. I think Netradyne just gives us those issues that were generated during the journey or the trip, right? Based on which I think we've been able to align and assign our control tower to run proper training programs to the drivers. So each time they complete a trip, their scorecard is generated. We look at it, what were the issues during their journey. Yeah. We train them for it. And then probably the next trip, we also look at it, whether those were repeated or whether he needs to do a training, whether we need to warn him, right? So all of those ecosystems have been developed. So we found their product to be the right fit for our zero accident targets that we've assigned for ourselves. So first we feel we will start at home. We'll start on our own vehicles. Then we would probably want to take it to the next step, which is the lakhs of vehicles which are onboarded with us, how to go about it and how to solve that problem there.
Right. And Nikhil, also there's a big talk about sustainability all across industries now. In logistics industry specifically, how will you look at sustainability here?
So I think living in Delhi, the first thing that comes is the pollution and the environment, the air that we breathe in. So it's much more closer because we are headquartered in Gurgaon, so it's much more closer to our heart. And as a purpose for the organization, we've decided to work towards environment on the operations that we do. So as a result, we started rail because it's more economical as well as it's more environmental friendly. We started coastal after that. Also, I think hats off to government with the kind of adaptation and products that they are also bringing in, such as alternative fuels, right? I wouldn't say the speed is right, but they are thinking on those lines. And more customers have started asking for such solutions, that how the carbon sustainability, cost has always been part of it, but now they've also started talking about carbon, right? Immediate products that we have is probably transitioning from Euro 3 to Euro 4 to Euro 6. And then we have likes of electric vehicles, somebody spoke about in great detail about it. Then LNG is coming up. So we've been at the top of it to understand what product does make sense, what can be brought in. At the same time, I think we've been trying to work around a lot of technology which could reduce the idling, which could probably carry more and more load. The empty runnings of the vehicles is the least that we could do. So we've already started working around all those things which are in our control and can be, worked upon.
Can be worked upon, exactly. Another thing, I know we've already spoken a lot about drivers, and it is a very important topic. As per you, what impact do you see the new technology having on your employees? Also, somebody was saying that, do you think that the drivers will be losing their jobs since so much of automation is happening, which...
No, so I think the way India has been growing, or probably I wouldn't talk about global, but I think even if autonomous driving was to become part of the Indian ecosystem, which is at least, in my assumption, is at least a decade or 2 decades away, right? Not everything can be replaced by autonomous, right? So drivers would always be core of the Indian road ecosystem that would happen, right? With the scale and volumes, and I think we've been all talking about, and somebody was also saying that nobody wants to become, the next generation does not want to become a driver. So we are any which ways looking at a problem where nobody wants to become a driver, right? So I think we would always have requirement for drivers. So it's never going to be a question about them losing their job, right? But I think what we've been working upon and what Netradyne we feel is going to help us is that extra factor and data that would enable us to make top-level global standard drivers that we could have in India. Because with the kind of data that we would be receiving, we would be able to train them well, which was missing as of now, until now. And on the top of it, I think the more and more, somebody talk about OBD 2.0 that's coming from 1st April. The OBD in Euro 6 vehicles have already been there. So we've already started working upon a lot of driver improvement programs in terms of the gear shifts, in terms of the clutch usage, the costing or the overrun that they do, right? So we've already started working on those kind of driving behaviors that they could work upon, which is not just environmental friendly, safer, and it makes them a top-class driver, right?
Absolutely. Now, Nikhil, the last very important question. You, of course, your company is a leading player in the logistics segment where you are there. What about any future expansion plans that you have?
Yes, so I think internally, and I think probably I'll share it here since you asked, that I think we've been trying and we've set in a vision to reach, so we are at around 4,000 crores in revenue today. So I think on a top line basis, we are trying to achieve or get to 8,000 by 2027. Having said that, I think a lot of it, like I defined, the purpose is going to be environmental friendly. So we are going to work towards a lot of such products and developments. At the same time, we want to become a full stack logistics company. We've always been a very customer oriented organization. So we want to provide them as many logistic based services that we can. So from bulk and FTL, we want to move on to warehousing, distribution, last mile deliveries. So we've been working on it, and hopefully we'll be able to achieve this target that we've set in for ourselves.
Absolutely, that sounds fantastic. Thank you so much for speaking to us, and thank you so much for being a lovely audience today.
Thank you.
We are, as Netradyne, in the business of, and we're proud to say this, in the business of trying to save lives, right? And as Nikhil said, one of our real objectives is to be able to improve driver behavior, to be able to give fleets like Darcel the kind of data that they need to identify skill gaps, to be able to fill them, and to be able to have an automated way of coaching our drivers. What we do is very simple, and I'm not going to probably use the slides that are here, but anyway, leave that alone. What we do is basically use the power of vision. Netra is eyes, Dyne is the power or the dynamics of vision. So what we use is the power of vision to actually, through cameras, sense events which are impacting the vehicle outside the vehicle itself in relation to the road, as well as sense events which are actually impacting the driver. So, globally we detect speed signs, stop signs, traffic lights, and every violation of any of these is captured as a minute-long video sent up to the cloud. Similarly, inward-looking camera looks at whether the driver is wearing a seatbelt, whether he's drowsy, whether he's distracted, whether he's talking on the phone. Again, if any of these happen, then a minute-long video is available with the fleet manager. All this data can then be used by the fleet manager to decide, if you have 100 drivers, how do they score? And like a lot of people said, not only do we actually find where the driver displayed the wrong behavior, we also try and incentivate him by recognizing his good behavior. So we do have a driver scoring mechanism, which again allows the right level of training to be given. We have proactive, in-cabin alerts, which actually track things like forward, collision warnings, tailgating, following distance, which actually, including things like driver fatigue, driver drowsiness, where an in-cab alert actually alerts the driver to an impending event, so that predictively you can stop an event from happening rather than the traditional mode of using cameras to investigate what happened in the past. And that has what has resulted in a number of our customers actually publicly stating that their accident rates have fallen as much as 40%. And 40% is a huge number. We all heard that, we have almost the equivalent of 2 737 crashes every day in our country in terms of deaths on the road, right? And the kind of hullabaloo that one aircraft crash creates for the right reasons. But when there's the equivalent of 2 aircraft crashes every day, we tend to take it in our stride. And that is really something that we would like to impact. So every percentage of change that we bring in averting accidents is at least a few families saved. And that's really the bottom line. We've done a lot of analysis on customer data, and we find that in a matter of a year of the adoption of the technology, the alert rates that are created in a vehicle exponentially drop. And I'll take an example of Shell, who's been a customer for a long, long time. When they started deploying our technology on their tanker trucks, they were producing approximately 1.2 alerts in approximately every 3 hours of drive time, right? In 2 years' time, that 1.2 alerts in 3 hours has come down today to 0.08, right? And you can imagine when alerts come down, that means that your driving behaviors are better. That means that you've averted accidents. That means that your drivers are becoming better and more skilled at what they're meant to do. And, we are proud of the fact that we are making a difference. And I strongly believe, as a lot of people said, that if technology is adopted by the early adopters quick enough, then we'll have a tsunami kind of a wave which will make adoption and therefore the results from that adoption very, very apparent and very, very quick. That's what you do, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank Economic Times for hosting this session, and I'd like to thank all of you for being here, for sharing your views, and for really waiting for a long time for your drinks and dinner. Thank you very much, everyone.